Okay, guys, so really with delivery, it's kind of illustrating what we don't want and then finding the creative ways to create the opposite. And I always kind of channel my inner Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Now, in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, brilliant film, but there's a teacher and he does the register and his voice is so monotonous and boring, but actually comes up later as well as the same teacher, that the whole class just fall asleep. So what we do not want when we deliver our speeches is a sign of a style of delivery that is the same, where the tone is exactly the same. Now, that can be achieved like whether it's too fast or too slow, the impact is the same. So, like I said, so we want to avoid this kind of thing. So basically, we do not want speeches that sound like this. I have lost count of all the times that I have visited an area of outstanding beauty and been appalled by the devastating impact humans have had on the natural world. But we also don't want this. Litter carelessly dropped masses of waste lying on the roadside, plastic that won't degrade for hundreds of years floating in the ocean. It's only now that people are starting to realise that pollution is an insidious issue that is destroying our world. It's only now that people are starting to realise that our generation will be the ones who suffer the consequences of millennially destroying our home. So actually what we're really doing by starting to just create these little notes, and again, these notes are suggestions. They might again adapt, but it's really just making us intentional. We intentionally want to think about how we're going to deliver our speech. We are intentional in wanting to memorize it. In other words, we're not just planning to stand and read off a piece of paper, because that will get you a pass if you're lucky. For those merits and distinctions, delivery and memorization are everything. So I've lost count of all the times that I have visited an area of outstanding beauty and been appalled by the devastating impact humans have had on the natural world. Litter carelessly dropped. Mountains of waste lining the roadside. Plastic that won't degrade for hundreds of years floating in the ocean. It is only now that people are starting to realise that pollution is an insidious issue and it's destroying our world. It is only now that people are starting to realise that our generation will be the ones who suffer the consequences of mindlessly destroying our home. So I was using tone and pace there to draw attention to those words. I was pausing, appalled. Now, you might have realised I was starting to do something else. Now, when we look at memorization, okay, there is what we call improvisation. Now, improvisation is where you do something a little bit off script. So actually, as I was reading that, there were certain points where I was adding in, did you notice it? Repetition. Okay, now repetition is a really good little trick for improvisation, but also for controlling pace and creating variation. So if suddenly you feel you're losing it and you're going too fast, you can do the dramatic pause and sigh. Devastating. And picking on a word that you repeat, but it's got to be the right word. I also changed a sentence structure and I added in an and where I hadn't written it. So the whole point of delivery is it does start to draw attention to sentence structures, organization of ideas, and as you're beginning to speak it out loud, now this is why it's quite good if you're brave to record yourself, because you might speak out changes, and actually when you hear it back, they're brilliant, so you want to then write them into your speech. Okay, so improvisation means that when you're starting to think about memorizing, you don't have to memorize the whole speech word for word. There are certain sections which could be improvised. Now, I'm deliberately working here on a section that we could say is from the rising action. Okay, it's not a traditional opening because I haven't done the good morning, but that could be improvised. I could improvise a greeting. Okay, and that might make it feel more natural rather than rehearsed. So there's no greeting here, but I could improvise a greeting now. I'm just looking at my clock. Okay, so I could say, right, good morning. Good morning, year 9. Good morning. School. Good morning, Tall Point Community College. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm improvising. I haven't written it down, but I'm beginning to improvise my opening. Okay, now, so there's bits in your speech, and you're going to think as well that they could be improvised. Now, anecdotes to a degree could be improvised. You might roughly know that you're going to tell a story of when you were 6 and found a creature that was trapped and wrapped up in plastic. So you could plan that. You've written it out in detail, but when you're learning and memorizing your speech, you can say, well, actually, I don't need to get all the wording of that absolute, but I could improvise that. I could tell a story. And the good thing about anecdotes is if you're telling stories that really happened to you, you can be much more natural. And what we want in this speech is the right balance between what we call that high style, lots of the planned rhetorical figures, but also the natural. So if I was improvising, I'd be looking at this section that I'm trying to learn, and I might improvise a beginning, and I might improvise an anecdote. So I might say something like, good morning, Year 9. It's so lovely to be here speaking to you today. But I have to be honest. As I was walking from my car into the college, just those few feet, there was so much litter. Bits of plastic, cans, thrown away paper, and it began to make me feel quite despondent and sad. Because I've lost count of all the times that I've visited other areas of outstanding beauty, and been appalled by the devastating impact that humans have had on the natural world. Litter carelessly dropped, mountains of waste lining the roadside, and plastic that won't degrade for hundreds of years floating in the ocean. So within that, I was starting to do my improvisation. There were certain words I was starting to repeat. I was practicing delivery. I was pausing. You can't see me, but with mountains, I'm kind of like doing a sweepy thing. With my arms, I'm gesturing. So as you're reading your speech aloud to yourself, this is why it's quite good to maybe recall it, because you might naturally improvise for the first time. But there's also ideas that have to be learned exactly by heart. So statistics, for example, though they aren't in this paragraph, your facts and your figures. You don't want to be Donald Trump. You don't want to be caught lying or fabricating. So what you need to do is make sure that there are certain lines that you memorize. Now, memorization techniques are never wasted. At GCSE across all three topics areas. So Christmas Carol, Blood Brothers the play, Macbeth, the anthology of poetry, so actually 4 areas. You have to memorize lines from a play, lines from a poem, lines from a novel. So the time we're just spending here today thinking about memorization is not wasted. Think about memorization, right? We all got to get over it. It takes time. Unless you have that gift of a photographic memory, which some people do, I don't. I have a really bad memory. You have to understand that memory is a bit like a muscle. It gets stronger and better the more you exercise it. Okay, so these are just some ways that you can begin to memorize bits of your speech. Now, I wouldn't do it all in one go because you'd be exhausted and you'd be fed up. So copying out lines. Now, that's what we mean by learning by rote. That was a really old educational idea. Children used to do everything by rote, repetition and recall. So writing out the times tables over and over again, writing out spellings. Now, although we've moved away from that, we do recognize now that in terms of memory, repetition is key. So when you copy out your lines, I have lost count of all the times that I visited an area of outstanding beauty. Say it as you copy it out. That's going to begin that process of it going down from your short-term to your long-term memory. Okay, remember what I said earlier? Eat, sleep, rave, repeat. So the eating, the copying out of lines, that first stage is kind of you're digesting the lines. You're maybe thinking, I could change that. You're maybe circling a word that you're going to say in a particular way. So reworking your speech, rewriting it can be copying it out. But I would say don't do a whole speech. Each day maybe plan to learn 3 to 5 sentences. Okay, and then we'll put them together at the end. So I copy out my sentences. Okay. Now I practice by moving around. So this is I have a little rest. Yeah, eat, sleep, rest, repeat. Rave, repeat. Now the ravey bit, practice by moving around. So movement is linked to memory, okay, automation. So memory can help. Now this can help with the idea that you will potentially be recorded delivering your speeches to an audience. Now, all of our speeches we actually watched do kind of challenge this a little bit because Emma Watson was stood still. Denzel Washington was stood behind the lectern. Martin Luther King behind the lectern. Lovely president stood up with a speaker. Samwise Gamgee kind of moved a little bit, but he was fundamentally stood because they've remembered it. So this bit of moving around is to do with the learning of the speech, not the delivery by once you've learned it by heart. So sometimes practice by moving around. So walk around saying a certain line. So if we were going to challenge ourselves to learn this line off by heart, I have lost count of all the times that I've visited an area of outstanding beauty and been appalled by the devastating impact humans have had on the natural world. I've copied it out. Now I'm going to stand up and I'm going to walk around as I read it. So can you hear me walking? No. So I have lost count of all the times that I have visited an area of outstanding beauty and been appalled by the devastating impact humans have had on the natural world. I have lost count of all the times that I have visited an area of outstanding beauty and been appalled by the devastating impact humans have had on the natural world. So I did do those moving around and I was just practicing them different pace and variety. Now, I am recording my speech literally for you guys, but you sometimes need to listen back. Hello, magic phones. Smartphones are brilliant for this. Somebody at home is brilliant for this, okay? Now, other ways sometimes is to write outlines, leaving in gaps, and then filling in the gaps. Learning the speech in stages and building it up, rehearsing little and often. Now, we would not expect you to memorize a whole speech. So there is a process that we're not going to do today about turning speeches into notes. But litter, carelessly dropped. That's such a good sentence to learn. I've nailed it. Litter, carelessly dropped. Litter, carelessly dropped. I'm even saying it with my eyes closed. Litter, carelessly dropped. Because it's short, I get that. But memory and memorization and delivering. So your job for yourself today is to choose the opening section of your speech. I don't want you to do more than 2 paragraphs. Look at the opening of your speech again. So look at that bit that we did and we called it, didn't we, under our speech structure, our character and setting. So look at your character and setting paragraphs. Text mark them, annotate them, write notes over them about delivery, and then practice memorizing your speech. And then your final challenge is going to be to do this. So you're going to read your speech aloud to somebody, those first 2 sections. Okay, and you're going to ask them some questions. And if they say no to any of these questions, you have to go back and make a change. So you're going to practice memorizing and delivering the first 2 paragraphs of your speech to somebody you love, somebody at home, somebody you know. Then you're going to say to them, could you tell what I was arguing? So, Mum, listen to my speech. Off you go. Mum, can you tell what I was arguing? Yes. Brilliant. Did you find it easy to follow my speech? Yes. Did you find any parts confusing or unclear? No. Mum, was there anything about my delivery? Was it slow enough? Was I too fast? So any questions? So you're going to read the speech and ask questions. Now, this is the hard bit, the bit only you will know. If Mum or Dad or somebody at home says no, you then have to go back and make that change. So if you said, Mum, could you tell what I was arguing about? And Mum is honest and says, look, I love you. I know you've been working really hard, but it's not really very clear. So you say, okay, I'm going to go back to the opening section and I'm going to make sure I put in a sentence that makes that really clear. I am here today. And then you can be like Ron Seal, do exactly what it says on the tin. I am here today to argue that it is time to end plastic pollution. And you put it in really clearly. Did you find it easy to follow my speech, Dad? No, I'm sorry. I really loved your delivery. I thought you were really confident, but I kind of lost my way. So then you go and look and think about linking phrases. So the idea that you need to clearly signal, and what is more, let's now move on to that you're guiding them through. Now, those guides can sometimes be improvised. So you've got your paragraphs and you think, actually, I just need to add a guide there. So you're not rewriting the whole speech as such. You might just be making notes. Okay. Did you find anything at the beginning confusing and unclear? And they might say no. Ask them to tell you which part and why. You can then rewrite that section to make it clearer. So your job today is to only for the first 2, the setting and the character paragraphs, right? First 2 paragraphs, practice thinking about how you're going to deliver them. Record, practice, say them out loud. See if there's sections there that you can improvise and try and learn some of those opening lines off by heart. Then you're going to get your guinea pig. Mum, Dad, brother, sister, cat, and you're going to deliver your speech to them. You're going to ask them the questions and then you're going to put it into practice. Okay, my lovelies? So off you go. Now, guys, I know some of you are really keen to share the work you've done, so I just wanted to quickly explain. If you want to show me or your teacher the text marks you've made, look, miss, this is why I've said I'm going to speak slowly. This is something I've done. Brilliant. But actually, you don't need to definitely upload anything today, okay?